Hello, 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 hello. Hello, British People's League. BritishPeoplesLeague.com at you. January 13th in the new year, 2013. We're going to try and keep it pretty serious this morning. Basically, the show today is a memorial tribute to recently passed on Nick Maine, retired Justice of the Peace, Nick Maine from Australia. Those who didn't know about Nick, you missed out. Great sense of humor, Australian patriot. I've communicated with Nick for 40 years. Longer period of time than some of our listeners to these shows. Nick's a tribute to patriotism. He had the unique knack of forwarding important material. You know, we all get flooded with irrelevant emails quite often. A lot of news items that get passed around between patriots, really, you can get off the front pages of the newspapers. While thinking about this show for Nick, I have to slip in excitement the last couple of days. Well, it began with our connection, our fairly recent connection with Candour magazine in the United Kingdom. So they did one of our talks, actually last week's talk, January 6th. Somehow put some wording on the screen. You're talking now to a fellow that, horse and buggy days, but the technology, you put something on your screen when you're doing a YouTube video and then it will pick up as a video. So the video from last week's show, I hate the corny expression, gone viral, but I guess that's the term. Last week's taping, reproduced and put so neatly in a YouTube video by the Candour people, was picked up by a newspaper in India on the front page. Only a day it stayed there, but it was on the front page. And if you fiddle around, there's different ways you have to search for it. Now, you don't want to go into the front page of the newspaper first post in India, or you just get their daily news. But to get the day they put, the beautifully laid out caption by the Candour people, you click in various ways. For instance, you can click in YouTube, Candour, John Beattie, with a space between them, of course, under Google. YouTube, Candour, Candour, space, John Beattie. The first showing of the post, the wording was switched a little bit different. Candour, the word Candour was up front. Candour, YouTube, John Beattie. Or there's Candour, YouTube, John Beattie, BPL. There's various ways, but I think you'll be thrilled when you see it. And of course, I have to be brought down to earth. I get excited about some of these catch-ons and think we've got friends out there in the ether. I still believe we do. Because if that one show was picked up, so to speak, in quotation marks, and circulated throughout the web world, why haven't other shows been equally pronounced? No, I think there's something very significant that the video subject matter to do with the raid on the editor of Candour's home, the illegal raid, ticked off a lot of people in the establishment. And I firmly believe there are rogue elements in the establishment will assist us in the patriotic camps if we are intelligent, reasonable, using common sense, which Candour certainly is. Candour will keep this boy calm. But nay, I say it's too much of a coincidence. The first taping of this boy that went onto YouTube and connected with Candour and the illegal raid on Colin Todd's home is on the front page of the largest online newspaper in India. So you can say, why on a brown continent in the brown nation of India, Beattie? Well, it would give a little message, wouldn't it? Maybe that they should just stay in India. Who knows? But no, I call it Beattie's angle of coincidence. Something happens once or twice, it can be a coincidence. But when it happens big time, it can't be a coincidence. Back to Nick. And Nick would be pleased with all of this. Now, Nick is on a YouTube video, so if you check out Google Nick Maine, you just have to Google that simply, Nick Maine, M-A-I-N-E, and various aspects of his life and his patriotism will pop up. I knew him as a political friend, I mean a personal friend as well, but I didn't know, much about his family. I believe there's a surviving sister. Brain aneurysm, I guess it's called, that he may have passed on with in his 90th or 91st year. Now, Nick just sort of retired from distributing. Now, this word distributing sounds pretty small, pretty casual. But we're talking distribution of material that gave a spark of enthusiasm to Australian patriots, to British patriots, those around the Anglo-Celtic globe. Very, very similar outlook Nick had, as do the people with Candour magazine in the motherland. Very similar Nick had the outlook as to the British People's League. We too are sticking with those of our kith and kin around the globe. Now, a bit contentious, I suppose. There are some in the States who feel that, well, the white right must work together. Yes, go for it. But I've tried for decades to work with the American white right. But they're a mixed bag, and I don't envy trying to get Polish Americans, German Americans, British Americans all together in one crew, one form of activity, one lobby force as such. So, as the singer Ricky Nelson's corny old song, Garden Party, if you can't please everyone, you've got to please yourself.
Then in 1915, my country said, son, it's time you stop rambling, there's work to be done. So they gave me a tin hat and they gave me a gun. And they
for you, Nick.
Me away to the war. And the band played waltzing Matilda as the ship pulled away from the quay.
No, Nick had a unique system. Imagine at 90 years old, and he played the keyboard for the internet as a professional pianist. His webpage was spiffy and spicy, but he always forwarded material that was worthy, not casual, worthy material to inspire those of British stock around the globe. When he had to retire, just with a lot of things he was doing and age, his last blurb that came out in the fall of 2012, just past fall, quoting Nick here: "Hi all, I have tried to give up before, but this time it is definite. At 90 and being a carer for someone at another address, it is getting too much for me. However, I will occasionally keep in touch with a few friends here and overseas. My regrets, Nick Maine, JP." And as a follow-up to that message that he sent out, we of the British People's League have kept it posted on our main page, BritishPeoplesLeague.com, down about 4 items on the homepage. Response from BPL. God bless you, Nick, for all you have done to preserve our British race, whether in Australia, the motherland, the Dominion of Canada, New Zealand, and all of the old white Commonwealth. Hey, for the Yanks and Confederates too, when the history of the closeness of how our extinction nearly came about, when it's written, Nick Maine will be featured as the main voice who pounded us into shape, and just in time too. Nick and I communicated on a regular and steady basis for over 40 years. A real part of my life for sure. You will never be forgotten, white patriot, warrior, Nick Maine. Rest in peace, and God bless your soul. No more waltzing Matilda for me. So they gathered the crippled, the wounded, the maimed, and they shipped us back home to Australia. The legless, the armless, the blind, the insane, those proud wounded heroes of Suvla. And as our ship pulled into Circular Quay, I looked at the place where me legs used to be, and thank Christ there was no. And those suffering patriots were white, very few non-whites. To mourn and to pity. Those suffering patriots were white, very few non-whites. As they carried us down the gangway, but nobody cheered, they just stood and stared. Then they turned on their faces away. And so now, every April, I sit on my porch and I watch the parade pass before me. And I see my old comrades, how proudly they march, reviving old dreams of past glory. And the old men march slowly, all bones stiff and sore. The last time I spoke to Nick was via Skype. I mean, look at that. There he is in Skype at 90 years of age. And the young people ask, what are they? And yes, he had a tear in his eye as he had the webcam on his Skype, so I could see him. But this dinosaur Beattie here, I don't have the webcam set up yet. But there was a tear in his eye as he reiterated his farewell announcement from emails and just said that he can't keep it all going. I'm a bit astounded. I mean, out of nations, there are very few voices that come through loud and clear. He was patient. He sent out his bulletins day after day, year after year. Prior to the internet, by snail mail. And ironically for this boy, John Beattie, and for the Friends of the British People's League, we've always had a link with those overseas in one way or another. Prior to Nick Maine, it was Dr. Dique, D-I-Q-U-E, who put out an Australian patriotic newsletter called Immigration Reform. Then Nick came along. And now the irony, and it is pretty ironic that with Nick passing on, the steady, constant link, I was afraid was somewhat broken. I mean, sure, I'm in touch with patriots in the motherland on a steady basis, and some in Australia. But nothing could replace Nick. And then bingo, Candour magazine, of course, we've had reciprocal blurbs for each other. Candour promotes the British People's League. as their outlook is the same as the British People's League, and they promote us and we promote them on our homepage.
Now when I was a young man, I carried me pack, and I lived a free life on the rover.
This tie-in now with Candour is fantastic. It keeps a link. Yes, mind you, it's in the motherland, but it's still part of the networking, isn't it, of our old kith and kin. And again, we're not trying to ignore the American white, but they've got to sort out their internal feuds. Whereas we of British stock patriotism, we stick to those who want to talk to those around the globe of British stock roots. Keep us united. And people are paying attention. The Candour people have told me that there's an automatic pickup of a video, and that's why it was picked up by that Indian paper. But I don't know. I feel my imagination worked, but out in the ether, we do have support. People have arranged things, because why aren't all the other videos featured on the front page of that Indian newspaper? And hey, we're not suddenly turning our patriotism to India. It's just simply emphasizing that in the whole world, to be picked up by a newspaper, the illegal raid on the editor of Candour's home by the authorities last year was picked up or placed on the front page of an Indian newspaper, a continent with over 1 billion people. I'd say it's rather clever of someone, if they had the idea somehow through some contact, because obviously the press in the white world doesn't seem interested in their own roots. It's fashionable to be liberal, you know. But what a cunning way to get it advertised through an Indian newspaper. And I know Nick will be smiling down from above, chuckling at the whole episode. Yes, last time I spoke to Nick was via Skype. About, maybe 8 weeks or so ago. He passed away the first week of this new year.
Then we started all over again. And those that were left, well, we tried to survive in that mad world of blood, death, and fire. And for 10 weary weeks I kept myself alive.
Did they all die in vain?
Though around me
Did they all die in vain? The words the band played, Waltz and Matilda. Did they die in vain? All of our past histories, our heroes, Australian heroes, British Canadian heroes, from the motherland, Nelson himself, General Wolfe, Sir John Macdonald, whose birthday was just a couple of days ago.
That was worse things than dying.
Actually,
the
the placing of the Candour video came out on Sir John A. Alexander Macdonald's birthday. Present to you, Sir John.
To hum tent and pegs, a man needs both legs.
As I do these broadcasts, we have a bust. A sculptured bust of Sir John A. Macdonald.
So they gathered the crippled, the
Created
the main, and
the master bust. I just can't think of the correct word here.
the legless, the arms,
In 1890,
the insane,
by C.
proud wounded
Zaroni, Z-A-R-O-N-I, 4th of November 1890 at 239 Queen Street West, Toronto. And I've checked the historical records that Sir John A. Macdonald was in Toronto during that week, during that late fall of 1890. So this is an original, it's the mold, that's the word I was looking for. The original mold. Because a copy of this bust of Sir John A. Macdonald sits in the Lindsay, Ontario library. I got the chair down, and it was him. So here we've got Sir John. We've got Waltzing Matilda in the background, the memory of Nick Maine. Time's running out. God bless you again, Nick. We'll talk at you next week, folks. January 20th, 2012. Thank you for listening.
The parade pass before me, and I see my old comrade.